Hi, and welcome to Unprecedented Journey. I'm your host, Jeff Oppenheim, and I thank you for joining me today. Well, I'm about to introduce you to a friend of mine, a colleague that I've known for a while and worked with as a producer and as a director. His name is Lew Nescott. Lew offers really a deep pedigree, if you would, on two topics that generally I stay away from, not only here on Unprecedented Journey, but I go at it trepidatiously at best in polite conversation, because it sometimes can be the wedge between friendships, if you know what I mean, and even family sometimes. But Lew has such a deep knowledge and understanding, both on a religious perspective and his own unprecedented journey there, but also from a deep intel perspective. Yes, intel as in working with the State Department for many, many years in the Middle East, arguably a country where politics and religion can often collide, and so can the outside world's reaction to their marriage of the two. So I want to introduce you to Lew Nescott Jr. Lew, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Well, as I mentioned at the beginning, this journey today is really part of a much larger and deeper journey that you and I have, in essence, already began about a year and a half ago and are continuing as we venture down to D.C. to meet with political leaders, religious leaders, and even some fellow journalists, I understand, to really ask them for a perspective on the 2020 election and how these two topics really are converging, possibly ever more deeply than they ever have. And of course, speaking to these religious leaders and political leaders, we're going to be able to speak with them about how they're getting their constituencies to follow them to the ballot box and bring these issues forth in the ballot box. So it's going to be an interesting journey to the ballot box 2020.
Religion and politics, religion. Let me put it to you this way, right? Politics is the contract that we live by in this world. Faith and religion, however manifested, right? Deist, naturalist, traditional Trinitarian Christian tradition, an Orthodox Jew, for example, whatever, Sunni, Shia, however it manifests itself is how we live, perhaps in some way in what some hope is the life to come, right? Or eternity, the memory of eternity, right? So there are people that are playing for how they'll be remembered in this world, even though they're unsure about what will be out there. So just think of them as, in many ways, the social the contracts that we all establish. This is how I'll live in the world under this, in this political system, with this form of government, and then here are my positions of religion and faith, regardless of what they are, and how I choose to advance, perhaps, in another world yet to come, or at very least be remembered in this world, right? And the two we pick for guidance, right? My politics guide me in how I vote, but the faith guides me. It isn't my political system, but it certainly influences how I vote.
What's in front of us?
When we gather in front of St. John's Episcopal Church, right, where President Trump had his photo op on June 1st, we're going to ask three questions, right? We hope to ask three questions in addition to the structured interviews. And those three questions are a little bit different. Did you vote? Because some people might have voted already in Virginia or Maryland that has overvoting. Did religion or faith play a role in your vote, right? And then do you expect the conclusion of the election and voting on November 3rd, Election Day, and its immediate aftermath to be peaceful? Right? So this really involves the big questions of religion and politics. People motivated by faith, right? Manifested in their vote for President of the United States, right? Starting at the top of the ticket and then on down. And then the civil society end, right? The peacefulness of it, right?
Well, let's shift focus back to us and the journey we're about to take, going down to D.C. to talk to religious leaders and political leaders.
I think what we talked about is pretty much sticking a mic in front of somebody if they'll talk to us, making sure that they're safe, and shutting up and letting them talk. So we started with the timeless questions, which are deceptively simple, right? Are you political? Are you religious? And do the two mix, right? Don't judge it. This is for a series on politics and religion in America, and let them talk. And I think what people will tell you, regardless of race, color, creed, I suspect regardless of income, regardless of what they are doing for a living, including unemployed, desperately trying to make ends meet and find a job, right, that the people are eloquent. There is, I think, a level of profound wisdom that we just don't get anymore.
Within that, we're also going to have what we're calling our Discerning series, which will be interviews with both the left and the right, as it were.
Yes.
And various political officials and representatives.
And other religious leaders.
And
right.
other religious leaders.
Right.
That will dive in a little bit deeper, of course.
Right.
And talk about that series, and you're going at it really, again, from a sharing of information.
Right. The 2020 election piece we're putting together in Washington next week is really, hopefully, just really 3 or 4 short interviews and some person street interviews, right? I mean, it's a faith-based person from the Republican side, from the Democratic side, a reporter with an insider who works for the ultimate insider publication, The Hill, right? And then some personal person and street interviews, right? Wherever we can grab them. That's the 2020 election edition, right? That we're certainly putting out through available channels. The other part, and we'll use those, would be other interviews with religious leaders in Washington, which will be part of a wider series called Discern. And Discern is really the umbrella, right, for religion and politics, all things religion and politics. So that's where we would place our Riding the Rails 3 Questions for America. Think, for those of you who might remember or have heard stories about Charles Kuralt, right? It's morning in America, right? I mean, so we'll go in that direction. And then there's a deeper piece. Think of it sort of as the Meet the Press, which is my model, Meet the Press version, but on the religious dimension of a political question of the day, right? So you can have policymakers at the federal level, right? Senate, House, and from the White House, and other influencers in the global capital and our nation's capital, Washington, stepping on the set, right? To do sit-downs and deep dives on their thinking. So this is part of Discern, the ability to discern, if we can, the difference between religion and politics, and that timeless question of when they do mix and we can't deny it, or we try to deny it and it ain't going to work because it's there. And we use coded language for it, because I really think that for us to deny it and create almost the false impression that the two do not talk to each other is, to be frank, silly.
Well, I, in fact, have an edit of the interviews we did with the public in Grand Central Station, and I want to play that for you now, in fact. I think you'll find it, just as Lew and I found it, immensely informative in its own way, in the sense that you hear such a wonderful diversity of opinion. Let's have a watch.
We're here at New York's Grand Central Terminal to ask a simple question. Do politics and religion mix? Let's go find out.
Yes, I'm religious.
Proudly so.
Not in the conventional sense.
I'm extremely anti-religious.
I'm Buddhist.
Irish Catholic.
Jewish religion.
I'm a Jehovah's Witness, so I am religious. I'm a Jesuit priest and a journalist.
I mean, moderately religious, yeah.
No.
Yes. I don't align with any party in particular, just have my own views.
No, but I listen.
I just like to make sure I'm aware of what's going on. I follow politics, but I don't really firmly believe in one way or the other. I kind of fall in between.
I'm from the Netherlands, and we've got so many different political parties that it's hard to choose one of them.
Tough question. My advice is, normally, for me, religion is purely personal beliefs and should not too much interfere in politics.
It's a moral training at its best, and politics requires a lot of moral sensitivity.
I think the conservative Christian right has way too much influence in our current government, and that's not where they belong.
Jesus was the head of all politicians, so I think it's important to have religion in politics.
Politics don't dictate people's personal preference.
A significant part of our democracy, that religion is separate from all political and governmental control.
I guess it's political when we do the national anthem or the Pledge of Allegiance, and I think it's very appropriate that they say, you know, one nation under God.
You have to separate it.
Because
Separate. Everybody have the rights to do his religion as he wish. And politics, it's you vote whoever you think gonna bring your dream true.
for the people, by the people, the other one is actually a choice.
No.
Why?
Because we have a variety of people coming from different backgrounds, and if you make politics religious, then you are limiting yourself and others.
I embrace the idea that all people are brothers and sisters, and that everything that we do in our political life should be governed by those rules.
Easy to say, hard to do.
Lew, I have to say, seeing this one that we did in Grand Central Station, and also rewatching the one as I did in preparation for the show that we did in Union Station, it is so informative in its own right, because it really, I feel, puts us in touch, right in the crosshairs of the American public, in all its beautiful diversity of not only look and feel, but also of opinion. And in many ways, too, I think it works against where we've been put now, today, which is we make these preemptive strikes, these prejudgments, if you would, and I think these videos prove, no, you don't see half of these answers coming with these folks. So it's really great fun. What are your thoughts on it?
People, first of all, it's, I think our thinking is that this is really pretty cool, right? I mean, our idea, and it's still our idea, to ride the rails, Amtrak, right? To really ride the rails across this country, because public transportation hubs are the last great town squares where people cross paths on their way to earn their daily bread, right? On their way to see family and friends. Sadly and tragically, it's also where people live, right? For safety and security when they can, where they can, right? So to ride the rails of the American rail system, Amtrak, and to step off at each and every rail as we can, and to spend a night there, however we decide to do it, and to ask those three questions, I think would reveal an America over time that would be stunning, engrossing, provocative, right?
Before and after the election.
Before and after, right? But and so I think that's certainly we've just started, and we need to figure out how to keep that going. And I think we did that, and we're going to do that in Washington. So in addition to doing some stand-up, sit-down interviews, ideally with people who can speak to questions of faith on both the left and the right, from the Republican and Democratic points of view, along with what we think will be a great interview with a very respected insider publication like no other, The Hill. I think we'll be able to flesh out some hot issues, right, beyond what the networks are talking about right now, right? Let them talk about what they're going to talk about. But religion and politics was there well before the 2020 election, and it's going to be there well after. It's just hot right now.
Well, Lew, as you know, Unprecedented Journey really is all about that journey, that personal journey. So again, I want to shift it back to you. Why this journey? Why this commitment to go down to D.C., this commitment to talk to leaders and the public about politics and religion? Why now?
Yeah, one word, death, right? I'm at the end of my earthly life. I mean, I'm not trying to be morose and so forth. But I've had a good life, a fairly long life, a lucky life, a blessed life, right? I mean, I have a roof over my head, a faithful partner, a wife and spouse of over 40 years. Life doesn't always work out the way you want, right? So for me, journalism, and I do have a communications degree from the 70s, which is journalism degree, right? They call it the J degree, right? So I had,
arguably back when journalism.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, I had one of those, and it was taught by women and men, old school, right? I mean, Scripps Howard photographers and writers where you edited your own copy and were under deadline, didn't make a lot of money. There weren't the shows, right? And the obscene amount of money that we throw hosts, right? You did a job, and if you did well enough, you could earn a decent living, but then, your time ended. So for me, journalism offers putting that degree to work 40-some years after I got it, better late than never, an avenue to tell a story. Journalism is about telling a story, and it's not telling, it's being able to quickly and insightfully and deeply capture a story in about 10 seconds, right? I mean, right, I'm thinking deadline, right? But I think that's why we partnered, because this is about telling a story that people really aren't telling right now, right? I mean, it's happening right now. Religion and politics is there, and we need to figure out what it means and what it is. So this offers an avenue to tell that story.
Well, as we mentioned, we'll be down in D.C. bringing forth opinions of leaders, but I want to ask you, you're leading this journey with me. I want to ask you, Lew, what's your hope for a takeaway? What, with all this information gathering and this offering through digital means, what's your hope as a takeaway?
Be aware that I think it's ingrained in our DNA, right? That there's a political strain in us, and it plays out even in terms of relationships or the ethnic groups we ascribe to or assign ourselves to, right? The tribes, right? Language, food, culture, tradition, all of right. That, and there are political impulses there, right? And how that manifests itself with an alignment with one political party or the other or another party, right? That's just part of who you are. And then certainly the religious part that if you didn't think there was a religious, spiritual dimension to who you are, maybe this election will bring that out, and you'll wonder, why do I really feel that way, right? Or why am I believing that way, right? And it could be even a rejection, saying, "Oh, I'm not spiritual, I'm not religious, I'm a pure secularist." But even that conversation requires some level of engagement. And I hope that's an engagement that stays long after 2020, because I think the one thing and the one thing only we've discovered, and I've referenced it here this afternoon, it's that it's in our DNA. We're told not to talk about it. We don't know how to talk about it. We're not maybe aware of it, or we are aware of it, right? A family crisis brings it out. Why it happened? Where's the justice in this, right? Job loss, a relationship failure, whatever. Or even a success where you express gratitude and joy. Human beings, I think, naturally gravitate toward trying to explain that which is inexplicable, right? And the source of it, right? The ineffable. Where did it come from? Where do I come from, right? These aren't, and we're just insensitive to it. And maybe it's time we reveal that again. And I think this election, in a very hard, harsh way, has done that. And if we can keep going below the surface, well beyond 2020 beyond, then we're doing a service by having our own great awakening with the American people to at least be more respectful and civil and recognize that there's nothing wrong with religion and politics in your life and how the two might cross. It's a question of how you respond to that.
Lew, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
Great. Thanks for having me.
And thank you for joining us as well. We are going to leave you with one more episode of the program that Lew and I created, where we interviewed people, regular folks. This was at Union Station, as I mentioned before, and we asked them 3 questions for America. 1, are you religious? Tell us in as much as you want to tell us. Are you political? Tell us in as much as you want to tell us. And finally, do politics and religion mix? I hope you enjoy this little digital extra. And in the meantime, I hope you will continue to tune in as Lew and I head down to D.C., heading into the election 2020, to ask political and religious leaders, do politics and religion mix, especially at the 2020 ballot box? Until then, stay safe, stay well, and please vote.
Our next stop on politics and religion in America is here at Washington's Union Station. Let's ask the people of the nation's capital what they think.
think everybody's political.
Politics are a big deal where I come from.
I'm an active duty military officer right now, so we tend to be apolitical.
I have my own political view.
I'm very interested in how our country is run and the rights of our people.
I was a big Bernie supporter.
Honestly, I used to be. Over the last few years, I kind of fallen back a little bit.
I think I only am political when I find offense in something.
Catholic. My religion is Buddhism.
I talk to God every day.
Not an everyday church goer, but yes.
Not really.
No, I'd be atheist.
I have a family, and we teach our children, values.
It's not something that I feel a connection to at this time. I am very strongly faith-based and trying to become less religious.
I'm spiritual. I have a deep respect for religion.
Today's America, I don't think so. Not in today's America.
I think that the Constitution and the founders were clear separation of church and state. I think that's gotten way more muddled, even more recently.
I think they have to, because I believe that if we don't have a faith base and believe in a supreme higher power, then where do we get our margin for morality?
A lot of people say that politics is religion because religion governs the way our lives, and so do politics to a certain extent.
No. Faith, it creates another level of confidence in people, and that confidence can go to the level of blind following and blind acceptance and even looking the other way, which we've seen.
I don't think that religion and politics should mix, but oftentimes they do, just because that's how your values line up.
I think it depends on the person. I think that someone can have deeply held religious beliefs and be an excellent politician or serve well in office, but should not permit one's personal beliefs to influence the decisions made in office. And how to keep that separate, I don't have the answer.
People live their lives by what they believe in, but it's different from what they do, and it's different from what they tell other people they do. So I don't believe that religion has a place in politics.
Letter of the law, they do not mix at all. Spirit of the law, I think they're intertwined.
I don't see any big division between people who are religious and people who are political.
You have to have some type of moral, ethical background to be able to practice politics, like I said, in a more humane approach.
I want them to. Me personally, I want them to.